They thought they were untouchable, unshakable, the kind of person who could walk away without looking back, who could silence a voice before it even had a chance to speak. They wore indifference like armor, convinced that emotions were for the weak, that vulnerability was a flaw. And for a time, they ruled the space around them, calling the shots, deciding what mattered and what didn't, who deserved to be heard and who should stay quiet. To them, empathy was optional, compassion a burden. They laughed off pain, dismissed tears, and shrugged at the cries for understanding they left behind. Every time someone reached out, they pulled further away, drawing lines in the sand and daring others to cross them. And when those walls were tested, they only built them higher. Because strength, to them, meant never needing anyone. It meant control. It meant power. But power is a tricky thing. It feels solid until it starts to slip. And while they were busy dismissing others, they never saw the moment coming when the world would turn its back on them, just like they turned theirs on everyone else. They were used to being heard, used to voices falling silent when they spoke, to eyes watching, waiting for their reaction. They thrived in the spotlight of attention, not because they gave it freely, but because they took it. Others begged for a sliver of understanding, and they decided who was worthy of it. But now the silence they once wielded like a weapon has been turned on them. It started small, a conversation that ended without their input, a message left unread, a plea met with nothing but empty space. At first, they thought it was a mistake, a fluke, but then it kept happening, again and again. The world that once revolved around their presence no longer stopped to listen. Friends became strangers, allies became ghosts, and every time they opened their mouth to speak, hoping someone would finally hear them, all they got in return was that same cold, familiar silence. The irony isn't lost on them, or maybe it's just beginning to sink in. They spent so long shutting others out, convinced that power meant never needing anyone. But now that they're the ones standing alone, begging for a voice to answer theirs, they're starting to realize something chilling. The world doesn't forget easily, and karma, it doesn't knock twice. They never thought they'd need it. Not really. Empathy, understanding, those were things they gave only when convenient, if at all. But now they crave it like air. A single nod of recognition, a hand reaching back, just one person to say, "I hear you." And yet no one does. It's a hunger that grows every time they're ignored. Every time someone walks away mid-sentence. Every time their voice fades into the void. They try to mask it with pride, with anger, with silence of their own. But deep down, they know. This emptiness isn't just loneliness. It's isolation by design. A world they built with their own hands, brick by cold, uncaring brick. And the worst part? They see it now. That strength they once believed in, the power of detachment, was never strength at all. It was a lie. Because now that they need compassion most, it's the one thing they can't find. Not from others, not even from themselves. They hear them still, the echoes of what they said, the things they brushed off, the moments they refused to see. Faces flash in their mind, ones they once ignored, dismissed, or cut down without a second thought. And now those faces are everywhere, in dreams, in memories, even in the eyes of strangers who pass them by. Regret isn't something they're used to. It's foreign, uncomfortable, clawing at the edges of their pride. They try to push it away, tell themselves they did nothing wrong, but the silence around them feels like punishment enough. Every unanswered question, every unreturned message, every glance that slides past them without recognition, it all adds up. Rumors swirl in their own mind. Did people always feel this way? Was the pain they caused this quiet, this deep? Some say they were never cruel, just unaware. Others whisper that indifference is its own kind of cruelty. And while no one's making accusations out loud, they can feel the weight of unspoken judgments pressing down on them from every direction. Maybe they weren't evil. Maybe they were just blind. But does it matter now? Not when the world has turned its back and left them standing in the cold, finally forced to feel what they spent so long pretending didn't exist. Every time they're ignored, every time someone walks away mid-conversation, every time their voice fades into nothing, it hits a little harder. Not just because it hurts, but because they know this pain. They've given it, they've shaped it, they've perfected it. It's like staring into a mirror that refuses to lie. No matter how many times they try to convince themselves that this is different, that they are different, the truth remains. This silence, it's not new. It's just finally aimed at them. They used to shut people out without thinking twice. A word, a look, a cold shoulder, and just like that, someone was left wondering what they did wrong. But now they're the ones searching for answers, wondering why no one wants to hear them, why no one seems to care. And the worst part? There's no one to blame but themselves. Because when you spend years teaching people how to treat you, by showing them that silence is acceptable, that pain can be ignored, that empathy is optional, eventually, the world starts taking notes. And when your turn comes, everyone already knows the lesson. They used to laugh at vulnerability, shrugged off emotions like they were weaknesses, signs of fragility. To them, strength meant standing alone, never asking for help, never showing pain. They thought empathy was a flaw, compassion a burden, and they wore their detachment like a badge of honor. But now they see the truth. That so-called strength was never strength at all. It was armor, thin, brittle, and built on nothing but pride. And as the silence around them grows heavier, they realize that the people they once called weak, they had something real, something unshakable. Because empathy wasn't holding others back, it was protecting them, giving them roots, giving them resilience. Every time someone listened, every time someone cared, it gave those people something to hold on to. And while our subject was busy pushing everyone away, convinced they didn't need anyone, others were building connections that carried them through the darkest times. Now they're left with nothing but the weight of their own isolation. Number one to lean on, no one to hear them. And in the quiet, they finally understand the strength they mocked. It was the only kind that lasts. They thought they could live without it, without the noise of emotion, without the weight of connection. They convinced themselves that detachment was freedom, that independence was power. And for a while, they believed it. They walked away from conversations they didn't want to have, shut down feelings they didn't want to feel, and erased people who wouldn't play by their rules. But now that same silence surrounds them like a cage. No one reaches out. No one asks how they're doing. No one stops to see if they're okay. And for the first time, they understand this isn't peace. This is abandonment. Not forced upon them by others, but chosen, piece by piece, by their own hand. Every closed door echoes their past decisions. Every ignored message reminds them of the ones they never answered. Every empty space around them was carved out by their own indifference. And no matter how loud they scream inside their own mind, no one seems willing or able to break through. This isn't what they wanted, or maybe it was. Maybe somewhere, deep down, they asked for this. To be left alone, to be free of emotions, of expectations, of obligations. But freedom without love is just loneliness wearing a mask. And now they're living inside it, trapped in the world they built, surrounded by nothing but the cold comfort of their own choices. They thought they could live without it, the empathy, the warmth, the connection. Thought they were stronger, for walking away, for shutting people out, for never needing anyone. But now in the quiet of their own world, they see it for what it really was. Not strength, but fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of being hurt. Fear of needing something they couldn't control. And so they built walls. Not just around their heart, but around every part of themselves. They trained the world to keep its distance, and now that the world has done exactly that, there's no one left to blame but them. They try to move forward, to reach out again, to knock on doors that once opened with ease. But those doors don't budge the way they used to. People have learned not to answer. Learned not to care. And in that silence, a truth settles deep. Inside them, one they can't escape no matter how hard they try. Compassion isn't weakness, it's survival. Connection isn't a flaw, it's what keeps us human. And without it, we're just echoes of ourselves wandering through a life that no longer feels like ours.